and the Straw Hat Pirates officially have their 11th member. Yes! I'm talking about Yamato!
Here's the gun, here's the doctor's note. I can kill him!
Yamato's addition to the crew will not just contribute to the journey of the Straw Hats, but also develop the story of One Piece even further. She is literally going to be the walking, talking experience of Oden and his adventure with Roger to Laugh Tale. After all, she did read Oden's journal religiously. However, Yamato's character doesn't come without any controversy, as she is a complex individual who dealt with many hardships that molded her into a person she strived to become, which is none other than Kozuki Oden himself. But to understand this complexity and the plot that Yamato will fulfill, we need to dive deep into her mind, past and potential as the next Straw Hat. Because Yamato's power and abilities only fall short beneath Luffy, and I would even stretch to say Zoro, meaning she is the third strongest member of the Straw Hats, ranking even above Jinbei and Sanji.
I've had a good chuckle over that one. I'm coming after you.
Welcome back everyone, it's time to go Steve! Okay, so it's a big claim to suggest Yamato is stronger than Jinbei and even Sanji. So let's break that down first. Yamato's power is actually more overpowered than we all realize.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Yamato from her childhood was blessed, or you could even say cursed, by her genes. Her father, of course being Kaido, an emperor of the sea, was an Oni, a special race with superior physical abilities. Effectively, this was passed on to Yamato. Not only was she an Oni, but Yamato also inherited Conqueror's Haki from her father. Conqueror's Haki on its own is already impressive, right? But she also ate the Inu Inu no Mi, modeled Nakami, a mythical Zoan devil fruit. This fruit is so powerful, it's referred to as a guardian deity of Wano. Even Kaido makes note of the fruit's immense power. She can shoot out blast equal to Kaido's Boro Breath, cover herself in an ice layer for further defense, even transform into a giant wolf, or better yet, a hybrid form. And as we know from Kaido's mythical Zoan hybrid, this form increases one's physical prowess tremendously. There is much more to Yamato's devil fruit, but if you want to learn all about it, you will have to watch our video where we explain all of the mythical devil fruits, including hers in detail. Regardless, Yamato's devil fruit isn't the only thing that ranks her amongst the strongest, as she also has the most powerful ability in all of One Piece, Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Yes, Yamato already has the ability to coat herself in Conqueror's Haki, which took Luffy and Zoro a long time to learn even after training for 2 years. Yamato being able to do this puts herself into the upper echelon of power. Combining that with her super rare mythical Zoan devil fruit, you'd get one of the strongest characters in the One Piece series. But hey, don't take my word for it. Her accomplishments speak for themselves. Yamato was able to instantly defeat Ulti, who has a bounty of 400 million berry. But Yamato's greatest feats came against her own father, Kaido. This is the fight where Yamato truly showed that she is one of the strongest characters in the manga. Yamato was able to fight Kaido as an equal for a period of time, firing ice blasts to counter his Boro Breath, transforming into a hybrid form and using advanced conquerors to fight him. In the end, she wasn't a match for her father, but considering right after, this very same Kaido did defeat a new and improved Luffy, and even though it wasn't a fair fight, you have to give him credit where it's due. Logically, Kaido's fire also is a huge advantage against Yamato's ice. All of this shows us that holding her own against him is not an easy feat. Once Luffy took over, Yamato was energized enough to run around and stop the island of Onigashima from blowing up. The damage she took from her father would have ended most people. Even Zoro couldn't tank more than a few hits from the Yonkos. My guy had to dope to continue on fighting. Now we know that she isn't quite at Luffy's level, especially after Luffy's awakening and him unlocking Gear 5th. Like he's on another level. But if you do compare Yamato in her hybrid form against Luffy without Gear 5, they are kind of roughly equal. By the way, this is after Luffy learning to coat his body in Conqueror's Haki. Zoro and Sanji both barely defeated King and Queen, and given what we know about Yamato, she would have had zero issues dealing with those guys. The only exception I can give is to Zoro, who in particular was extremely tired before this bout. He literally just fought Kaido, injuring the Yonko and being in a very bad shape before the fight even began. Chopper did heal him, however the fatigue still remained throughout. But what does this all mean? Basically, like I said, Yamato is stronger than both Jinbei and Sanji.
Boo this man!
Hey, don't boo me, it's the facts! Yamato already has excellent control over her abilities, whether that be her devil fruit or Haki usage, whereas Jinbei and Sanji has yet to show any signs of Conqueror's Haki, where even Zoro has just begun to tap into his true powers. After Wano in the final fights, they will likely be on the same level as Yamato, as her growth has kind of come to an end and her journey doesn't really coincide with the increase of power. Remember guys, she's older than Sanji and Zoro and is near her peak, whereas they still have boundless potential to still tap into. This does beg another question though. If Zoro and Sanji can eventually match up to her, then what will be her role for the Straw Hats? Well, don't worry, we have the answer. Yamato has studied Oden's journal and she will be a guide for them on the dangerous waters. Despite Nami being an incredible navigator, there are some unforeseen things even she can't predict. Well yeah, she can't anticipate everything, right? Yamato's knowledge from Oden's journal will help the crew tremendously on their journey, and that's not even taking into consideration the raw power she brings to the crew. Also, due to her connections with Ace, when the time comes, she will play an important role against Akainu. But now that we know what she will provide for the crew, the next question is, what will the crew provide for her? This brings us to Yamato's plotline, the journey to self-actualization, where we arrive at the controversial aspect, which unfortunately has a lot of people invested. This is due to Yamato's gender. However, the reality is Yamato's character has nothing to do with gender identity. Rather, it's everything to do with self-acceptance. Thematically, this parallels Ace's character, where his plotline was also about self-acceptance and feeling worthy of being loved for who he is despite his heritage. However, with that said, One Piece does have characters who explore the idea of gender identity, one in particular being Kiku, to understand if Yamato's character falls within a similar scope and what she truly is about. We have to eliminate any misconception. Throughout the video, we have been using the she/her pronouns for Yamato, even though Yamato has referred to herself as Oden and effectively a man. So what's that about, huh? Yet we and the community have always used the she/her pronouns for Kiku, who was biologically born a male. Well, after traveling through time, Kiku started dressing in a more feminine form and stated that she was feminine at heart, sealing any form of discussion right there. However, with Yamato, it's far more complicated. Rather than gender, it had always been about being a specific personality. Yamato was always treated like trash by her father Kaido, who even imprisoned her. The main reason behind this treatment was the rebellion she had against Kaido since she was a little girl. Yes, Yamato was a massive Oden fangirl and wanted to be just like him, the only man to have ever wounded her tyrant father. Hence, she proclaimed to be Oden himself, embodying her determination to rebel against Kaido's inhumane dictatorship. As for a young Yamato, nobody around her could face the mighty dragon except for that one man, Oden. Now, take a look at Yamato's mask. It's a Hanya mask, one of the most recognizable one out of the dance drama in No. This mask represents female rage and pain, which Yamato clearly feels. To us, Yamato's decision to become Oden himself is one of the strongest shows of determination we have seen in the whole series. If Oden was a female, then Yamato would have done the same. This is because it is Oden that symbolizes the power to go against her father and no one else. When it comes to the gender aspect, it only ties with her identity as Oden and not Yamato. Yamato pretending to be be someone else means that she hasn't found her true self. She called herself Oden to rebel against her father, but she hasn't actually lived her life as Yamato, who within all the facade is the daughter of a tyrant, making her the Oni princess. She has to eventually come to terms with this, and traveling with Luffy and the Straw Hats will be the adventure to ignite her path of self-discovery, finding out who she is without chains and binds, living as Yamato, not Oden. Oda has purposely made this clear in his Reverie card data book, as he himself refers to Yamato as female, but refers to Kiku as a male and in brackets as female at heart, clearly making a distinction. This is likely to future-proof the story as to when Yamato does choose to finally accept herself and her Oni heritage. In addition, there is also some discrepancies to back this all up. If Yamato truly wanted to just be Oden, why not completely throw away the Yamato name altogether? Like Yamato typically uses the name Oden as an identity, but with Luffy, she says to call her Yamato. This is a heavy hint that she knows that Luffy could be the one to help her find herself and will be the catalyst for this self-discovery. Yamato asking Luffy to call her by her real name is because she wants to be herself around him, meaning that deep down she wants to be Yamato. Now I know there's some of you guys out there with questions on if Yamato's character isn't about gender identity, why does her father refer to her as son, where as a child she was referred to as Oni princess? Well, simply put, Kaido doesn't give a shit about anyone's gender identity. He's a tyrant, he's a bad guy. To think he's respecting Yamato's decision in identifying as Oden, therefore a man, is ridiculous. If anyone believes this, then they haven't really understood Kaido's character at all. The real answer is, when it comes to becoming a shogun in Japan, traditionally rulership follows with dominance of patriarchy. Kaido wanted to push Yamato into the shogun position and forcefully subjugate the people of Wano into accepting her. The people of Wano takes this very seriously, as we know from Kuina, the granddaughter of Shimotsuki Kozaburo. Kuina understood that females had limitations when it came to becoming a swordmaster, be it biological, but it was always traditionally taught. Hence why linguistic purists point out that the term samurai is a masculine word, thus there is no female samurais. This is further proven by Oda himself. If you take a look at the influences that Oda mentioned for Yamato, they are Yamato Takeru, a cross-dressing Japanese prince who used to dress as a female to kill his enemies, and Oscar from the Rosa Rosales, who was biologically born as a female and remained so in the series. This was all mentioned at the bonus page featured at the end of chapter 945 of the manga. Yamato's identity as Oden is like that of a mask. She holds it dear and is afraid of revealing her true self. When she is seen as Oden and called as such, then yes, she is a man as Oden was a man. But Yamato is the person behind that mask, and to truly understand her and what she is all about, we have to start in the beginning.
Yamato's story first began when she witnessed the execution of Oden 20 years ago. During the Hour of Legends, she developed an immense respect and admiration for not only the man that Oden was, but also the way of the samurai. Soon after the death of Oden, she tried to save the remainder of Oden's family at Kuri Castle, but it was too late as Kaido had already arrived there and burnt the whole building down. This is when she discovered Oden's journal floating down the river. Yamato became even more enamored with the life that Kozuki Oden led, and as such grew the desire to become the man she idolized through any means possible. This meant she inherited Oden's dream to open up Wano and free it from Kaido's grasp. However, this would not bode well for Yamato when she decided to declare her ambitions and desires in front of her father. In response, Kaido beat his kid up and shackled her to Onigashima with explosive handcuffs that would blow up if Yamato ever left the country. One day, Yamato knocked out a bunch of Kaido's subordinates with the power of Conqueror's Haki. Seeing this, Kaido was impressed but said that if Yamato was going to keep acting like she's often, then it would be better for her to die. He then proceeded to throw the young Yamato into prison together with the old daimyo of Wano. The daimyo were very hungry and were served only enough food for one person. Yamato feared that the samurai would detest her for being the child of Kaido, but instead they gave Yamato the food, stating that samurai do not get hungry. Together Together with the help of the daimyo, they managed to read Oden's journal and were all fascinated by the journey Oden had led. 10 days after the incident, the former daimyos would break out of prison and launch a suicide attack on Kaido, all so that Yamato could have a chance at freedom. Kaido is someone who embodies the very opposite to the things she admires. Kaido is a tyrannical ruler who ascertains his power and influence through strength rather than charisma. Oden was someone who lived to fulfill his sense of adventure and experience freedom, yet at the same time was someone who would give it all up in an instant for the sake of somebody else. Heroic, charismatic, just, and strong. That's the man Oden was. Kaido robbed Yamato of her own freedom as well, shackling her down to Wano in hopes that she would one day become a powerful guardian, viewing her as a tool for his own rule instead of seeing her for the individual she is. Oden was the only man who could stand up against her cruel father and sparked hope throughout the whole country. The reason she idolizes Oden and wants to become just like him is because she wants to be capable of the things Oden could do as well, mainly going against her father. I mean, even if we neglect the whole thing about Kaido being the antithesis to Oden's ideals and the fact that he's a tyrannical ruler who drove countless to the brink of death, my man was a piece of shit of a father, and honestly, there is no other justification needed for her to despise her father as much as she does. 4 years prior to the current story is when Yamato first met Ace. When Ace and his crew came, Kaido and his executives were all away on an expedition. Ace's crew had originally set out to Wano for the sole purpose of killing Kaido, which led to the fight between Ace and Yamato. Ace did not know prior to this fight how much Yamato detested her father, and after she made that fact clear, because they quickly bonded. At nightfall, Yamato would listen to the stories of the outside world told through Ace, and this is the point where she expressed her desire to go out on sea and experience the vast world for herself. Yamato also asked Ace if there were any other rookie pirates out on the sea attaining infamy, and Ace answered that in a few years, Luffy would set sail, and when that time came, he would be the toughest rookie of them all. During this conversation, Ace accidentally spilled Luffy's true dream and immediately told Yamato to not laugh, but instead she shed tears, claiming she would never laugh at Luffy's dream as Luffy said the same exact words another great man once did. This great man being none other than the Pirate King Gol D. Roger. The next day, it was time for Ace to leave, but before his departure, she forged a Vivre card so that one day they could find each other again. Little did she know that this would be both the first and the last encounter they had together. Fast forward a couple of years later, Ace's Vivre card started burning up until it became nothing but ash, signaling Ace's demise. Yamato would despair at Ace's death, but a couple of days later, she managed to read what happened at Paramount War. She learned that Ace was none other than the son of the Pirate King, but the silver lining to the story was the fact that through this event, she found out about Luffy's increasing infamy as a pirate. She began to wait for Luffy as she kept the words of both Ace and Oden in mind. A new generation of pirates would appear soon, and the pirates at the front lines would bring forth a new era ushered by the defeat of Kaido. And so Yamato had been waiting for the past 2 years for the day Luffy would arrive on Wano to defeat Kaido. Yamato, who had been stuck on Onigashima for so long, finally had her shackles lifted by Luffy and a chance to set sail and be free emerged. However, that's not the full story. Yamato may have been freed from her physical shackles that made her unable to be free, but her idolization of Oden is a mental shackle she must overcome, just like how many of the other Straw Hats were freed by Luffy from their own psychological prisons. All in all, Yamato finding love and accepting who she is as Kaido's daughter, a Oni, and her own individual is the plotline we derive. If you want to learn more about Yamato and her mythical fruit, then make sure to check out this video next. Other than that, hopefully we don't get cancelled. Watch the other video.